Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Clint van Marrewijk. Clint is a CEO and co-founder of SaferMe, one of the world's leading pandemic readiness and workforce safety companies. He is a serial entrepreneur that specializes in startup businesses that tackle new and difficult safety problems. Now he is championing SaferMe's mission by developing pandemic readiness and a workplace safety solution to help businesses, schools, and government entities protect their most valuable assets, which is their people. Clint, thank you for joining us today.
G'day, Boris. Yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Clint, could you tell us a short story about your career path? What brought you to where you are right now, and why did you start SaferMe?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and keep it short and snappy. I did mechanical engineering in New Zealand, and because of that, I worked in gold mines, and I worked in milk powder factories, which they have a lot of in New Zealand. So I had some exposure to safety and the needs there. And then, as an engineer does, I went off and worked in finance for 5-10 years, and ended up getting a really good exit out of that company. And then came back and really thought, well, actually, there's a lot of technology that's available, especially on the data side, that isn't in the safety sphere. And it was time, I thought, to try and bring it into safety and bring technology in from other areas to safety and make it happen. So that was maybe seven years ago now, and SaferMe's been around that whole time. We really specialize in proximity safety, so the distance between people, the distance between you and risk as you move, and then beyond that, a whole suite of safety products that really tries to move beyond what is current safety practices and help push towards what the future could be. So that's our story.
Fantastic. So the COVID-19 pandemic took us all by storm, and leaving the businesses scrambling. But now we have seen the effects of the virus, and we can be better prepared for health crises that may arise in the future. So I believe we will have a very thoughtful conversation in the area of topic like from COVID to monkeypox and beyond. What pandemic readiness errors are business making, and how do these errors impact their risk profile? What do you think are the action with some actionable tips? So maybe can you share with us what you learned so far during this period of COVID-19 and what you're up to these days?
So because of our background in proximity safety, which was a very niche area, you can imagine before COVID, but it became very popular indeed during the COVID pandemic. SaferMe, it just happened, didn't it? So we became one of the leaders, if not the leader, in business-focused contact tracing, and have some of the best products on the market for that. And because of that, we've had to use our technology across the United States, Europe, obviously New Zealand as well. You can hear my accent a little there. So we've got a lot of experience in rolling out pandemic response products, and now businesses are moving into what is pandemic readiness, and what does that mean? So there are a lot of things happening there, and there is a lot of pressure coming from the board level and even the shareholder level down through into a company to say, okay, when this happens next time, let's not get caught out. So that's what pandemic readiness is about. And some of the key things that we see businesses doing, because when you're dealing with so many different companies, you get to see how different companies are handling that. And some of the things that we see that are different is, as a company, you want to include pandemic readiness into your business continuity planning systems. So oftentimes it's still a separated thing. COVID was a special response process, but the next COVID, what is the likelihood over 25 years of there being a COVID equivalent event? It's above 50%. So this is a significant issue that needs to be inside your business continuity planning systems. So that's like the first step, especially if you're a very large company. You don't want to have two separate processes. Now it's about, okay, how do we absorb that? What resources do we need to allocate to make sure that we don't have to shut down? That's, I would say, mistake number one, making sure that it is one cohesive plan. Number two, you as a company, especially the very large businesses and organizations, so we serve everyone from very large NGOs through to governments, through to large S&P 500, right down to sort of 100 or 200 person businesses. So that's our knowledge of the landscape. But especially the very, very large companies, you want to have a multidisciplinary team, and that's really around the response speed. If you have just a BCP team and not including your IT team, not including your privacy and security team, not including your HR team, if you don't have a multidisciplinary team, I hope my accent's coming across properly.
No, absolutely.
You won't be able to respond with speed. And other products, other systems that you may have, okay, it's all right to respond relatively slowly because you've got time. But when it comes to a pandemic, you do not have time. And if you do not have a multidisciplinary team, you cannot respond quickly, especially a large company. And the simple things that people forget, procurement processes. Like, I know that sounds strange, but if you're a large company, you've literally shut down your mine site. You've got thousands of people not working. You're losing millions of dollars a day. They cannot buy it fast enough to get a solution going if they don't have the procurement team and the IT team and a multidisciplinary team ready to go. So that's something to think about in your BCP planning. And then lastly, I would say just knowledge of what's possible. So those are the three biggest things: knowledge of what's possible and what good looks like. And so that's around, typically it's the big three. When you're looking about virus response, the big three, you want testing, contact tracing, and vaccination. There's a multiple other things to be thinking about, but those big three are the ones you really want to be on top of when it comes to what the latest technology is. So I've done a lot of talking there, but that's, if you were thinking, okay, as a company, what do we need to be thinking about? That's the crux of it.
Mm-hmm. And what is special about your solution as if you compare it with other peers, like maybe, I don't know the names, but you probably know that what is specific angle of your solution?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of things there. Primarily, SaferMe was developed for contact tracing in mind, the contact tracing proximity product we have. That's very unusual. Most products that almost everyone's had exposure to were very quickly spun up, and oftentimes in adaptation, they weren't built for purpose. Because of that, they didn't actually work very well. And especially even on the government side, I would say contact tracing didn't work very well. Old school phone trees didn't work. Mm-hmm. But the good news is there is new technology coming through, like SaferMe, that's literally designed for this in mind. And what that means is, just to explain, we provide a small wearable card about the size of a credit card that uses Bluetooth technology and stores all that information privately on the card and is not available to anyone else unless the person gets sick. So unless the person pushes a button on that card and pushes that data to their HR manager. So what that means is you have privacy built in from the beginning, and you're able to measure interactions really quickly. And from a business perspective, it's not just about protection of team, it's actually protection of operations. So instead of shutting down, say, 400 or 500 people because a few people get really sick, you can really quickly respond to, say, 6 or 7 people and keep your business running properly. And then everyone is better served by that. So the SaferMe system is built for purpose, works out of the box for contact tracing, and that's quite unusual in the market given how quickly COVID came.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to ask you a personal point of view. What is the commonly held belief or kind of misconception in your space of sickness tracing? And so what do you think like people don't understand properly in this space? And maybe you strongly disagree with some misconception that.
Yeah, there's many. There's a very nuanced answer there, I suppose. At the high level, there's a very clear delineation between business-focused contact tracing and public-focused contact tracing. This is something important to understand. At the public level, you have privacy by right, and people have to opt into a system to make it effective, and the phone tree-based systems really are not very effective at the government level. But on the business side, you actually are already obligated to share with your HR manager, and for safety purposes, if you have the type of disease that can infect and really harm people. Like it's built into the fiduciary duty of care that a company has to staff members, and staff members have to others. So what that means is, at business level, you can actually have much more effective systems put in place than at the government level. So there's kind of there's two separate product types, I suppose. This is a primary thing that most people won't understand, that actually there are really effective methods to stop the virus spreading in workplaces.
Fantastic. So, for example, if we take a life of average risk manager in the company, if there is one thing that they should start to prioritize right now that they are not doing currently, what would it be?
A risk manager in a company, what should they prioritize? It's very general.
No, with regards to your kind of what you do, maybe in your field of expertise.
Yeah, that's actually dependent on the company, I would say too. So your first step is to really think about the risk profile of the company itself. So certain businesses are incredibly impacted by shutdowns. So you're talking about supply chain critical businesses, so those that are handling very expensive goods, and it's traveling through from one customer to another. It's incredibly important that they don't shut down, otherwise they may well lose contracts and potentially go bankrupt, etc. Then there are companies where mines, food production, where being in close contact with each other is very difficult not to do. And those are companies, again, that you need to have higher levels of preparedness. Now, there are other businesses where individuals are literally separated all day long and they never meet hardly. And so then in that case, you have to analyze, okay, which parts of our company are at risk? So I think looking at it from the point of view of, what is our risk profile as a business is the first step. And then thinking about, okay, what are the costs to us when this happens again? That's the type of thinking you want to be, sort of a bottom-up type thinking. And then after that, thinking about, okay, what are we going to allocate to make sure that we can survive this? And what are the kind of obligations that we have to customers, employees, and those sorts of things. So it's actually, from a risk manager's point of view, it's the type of thinking that you kind of have. It's the type of thinking that's kind of inspiring, really. Like it's really important work, but you have to think of it from a high level rather than sort of day to day, down in the weeds. That's where I'd recommend starting.
All right. So maybe if you can give us some examples, what's something you or your team have recently achieved that you're really proud of? Maybe you can, if you don't want to drop names, just to understand what are you guys busy with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big things we're around now is obviously COVID was so much demand so quickly, like literally government level demand, many companies that need that product. And now it's around, okay, how do we build a system that's incredibly flexible so that if there are viruses that we don't even know the modes of transmission or how they transmit, how long you need to be near someone, how long the gestation is, it needs to be built to be flexible. So we've built the system to be filterable so that any future variant or virus can be handled. I think we're quite proud of that. It just means that on our side, we're equipping customers with a system that can work no matter what happens. And that's really kind of, our team is quite inspired by that. So I guess that's the thing we're excited about on our side. And then obviously we're guiding a lot of customers through pandemic readiness. So we do feasibility studies is what we call it, but especially the large companies, they need to understand the things I've talked about. And we try to guide them through what best practice looks like. And then obviously around contact tracing, there's other aspects as well that these companies are thinking through. So that's a whole new line of, I guess, work and effort that we're putting in place at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So what are the trends in the contract tracing world, and what we can expect from you guys in the future, in a few years?
Depends how far you look out. There are some very smart things that can be done in contact tracing. I don't want to get too much into what we're developing side of things, but with enough data, you can make all sorts of intelligent predictions, essentially. And it can be done in a privacy-centric way. That's the other beauty of it, is if you build things right from the beginning, you can build it so that it's anonymized completely. So on the technology side, there's a lot of exciting stuff that we're doing. Maybe ask me that question again in some other way, because technology isn't the future of technology is something we'll keep close to our vest.
Yeah, maybe if we do it more kind of in more practical way, if we kind of summarize, if someone who is listening to this interview would like to walk away with one or two major takeaways, what would it be?
Well, if they're a risk manager, then it's really the things that I've said are the most important things. So making sure you're starting to think from a 10, 20-year mindset with regard to what's next after COVID. Because the thing that's changed is not just employee expectations of your business, because if you get caught with your pants down a second time, it's not going to be, the excuses will not be as easy. And that's not just your employees, that's actually your directors, your customers, even your insurance companies. These are the types of things that are going to be impacting risk management in this area. So thinking long-term 20, 30-year planning, which means BCP planning, that's a main takeaway. And it is the right time to be thinking about pandemic readiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we have a lot of news, just monkeypox and other Ebola and stuff. It never ends. But I know you've been a serial entrepreneur. Maybe you can share with us what is your kind of approach to innovation. Why were you able to kind of successfully implement solutions in different areas? You said you started in the mining area. You did one thing, then you implemented this to other areas. So just to understand your entrepreneur mind.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, in safety, the key insight really is that a lot of innovation doesn't happen in safety first. So, I mean, although that's not what a safety technology person would try and tell you, I'm telling you that's true. So what that means is where the most innovation typically happens is where the demand is the highest. So you're talking about marketing, sales, B2C products. That's where innovation typically happens. So one of our key insights as a company is we look in these other areas for technology that could be useful for safety, because we acknowledge that really it's not going to be safety that's generating the newest, most innovative techniques usually. So that's I guess led us to some success, because we look out at what's happening in sales and marketing and think about, okay, how can that be repackaged, used properly from a safety perspective? So that's I guess a key driving insight behind SaferMe's success.
All right. So I think that were all my questions. Maybe I ask this question to all my guests, because I am running global risk community, and we are a community for risk managers. And I always ask how we at global risk community can contribute to better understanding of this complex world of risk. Some tips maybe.
How we can contribute to a better understanding of this complex world of risk.
What we can do better to understand.
Wow, you must stump a few people with that one. I think how I would fall back on the basics with something answer like that, and that is that communication is vitally important. So when you're talking about what is risk and how do we avoid it, actually there's some layers of importance that that sit on top of that, and how you communicate what you're doing, how you are honest and transparent with your employees and people. These are the things that really drive uptake, engagement, and actually effectiveness of whatever it is you're trying to do. And so like a great system and a great thinking with poor communication is worth very little. So I think like that would be my piece.
All right. Thank you, Clint. That were all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot something and you would add some sentences that will benefit our audience, please go ahead.
No, that's fine. It's been great talking to you, and yeah, wishing you all the best, and I'll have a listen.
All right. Thank you, Clint. And I'm happy that we had you on our podcast, and I hope we will kind of maybe in the few months do another topic on a more specific drilling down into specific technique that might benefit our membership. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to, especially if there's questions from your members of things they really want to dig into. We're happy to get into the weeds, and I can bring technical folk on here as well if they really want to get down into exactly how things work. So yeah, very happy to.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.